Alrighty, it's that time again, everybody. Steve here, and welcome to the show. Okay, Steve, the retired hobby tech guy, the guy who sold everything and went to Korea and started doing hobby stuff, and I updated my computer to Apple's Sequoia 15.6, and it sucks. It is the worst update I have ever had, and the bad thing is I can't even go back to the previous one. Yeah, there's a whole story behind that. On the flip side of that, what we're going to be talking about is how to save big money with a DIY teleprompter that I'm making in Tinkercad. I don't know if this will ever get out, but I'm in the process. A little squirrel moment happened, and I'm like, hey, teleprompters, and because I've been looking at teleprompters, and apparently you need a teleprompter to be concise and professional and, just read off a screen, and so it looks like you know more than what you really do or are, and whatever. So in other words, you do a script. And the whole idea is to have a script that is reflected on some glass and your camera's behind. I'll show. You know what? I'll just show you a picture. This just makes it easier. So that is a teleprompter. So in the back on that little left-hand side here, this little side right there, your camera is going to set, and then you have that plane of glass that's at like a 45 degree angle. And so your camera is able to look through the glass, but with your tablet or your smartphone laying down, like we see in the picture there, you can actually run your script off of an app, a teleprompter app, and it will automatically scroll. You can set the speed and the length and the width and the text size and all that, and try to make it easier to read. And then you can read from your script, and it won't look like you're reading from a script. So in my videos, yeah, I just don't do that. I just go live and run with it. So, but I thought about it. I was like, maybe there's something to this. Maybe I could make, or maybe before I said make, I said maybe I could buy a teleprompter and something I could use with a webcam, make a few adjustments and everything, and then I could read from a script. It would seem way more professional. And so I started looking at the prices, and I'm like, oh my God, seriously, are you kidding? This one in the picture over here, it's like 599 pounds. Don't ask me why that popped up and why it's in pounds instead of dollars or won or whatever it is. But I mean, that's a very expensive thing. When you start looking at teleprompters, basically it's your tablet or your phone that is scrolling. You can use a free app, and it kind of shines up into the glass that's at a 45 degree angle, and your camera is kind of looking through the glass from a hole in the back, and boom, there it is. Bob's your uncle. Since we're talking in pounds, and I'm not even sure why Bob is your uncle when something goes right. If you know, put that in the comment section down below. I'll need to look that up. But if you can answer that question, that's your homework for today. Why is Bob your uncle if everything goes right? So you people from the UK need to get on it and let me know. So anyway, that's what we're going to talk about on the good side. On the bad side, it is... I have a Mac, and they say once you go Mac, you never go back. Unfortunately, I have said that, and I've enjoyed my Apple computer. Big fanboy. Of course, Apple is so far behind in like their smartphone technology. New upgrade on an iPhone, a new color, and it's like, they're just starting to do stuff that Samsung has been doing for 10, 15 years. So it's... Yeah, I get it, and I understand that, I totally do. But generally with my Mac and my Mac Mini, it's got the M2 chip on there. I use it for Final Cut Pro, video editing, multicam, the whole 9 yards. It's pretty much a beast, and it's worked well. Matter of fact, I use Ecamm Live. I have the legacy software for that. So in other words, I bought the program for a lifetime, and everybody else has to pay a subscription fee. So I'm one of those old fogies that came in when Ecamm Live actually sold programs, and I'm trying to hang on to that as much as possible. Well, it ends up that with Ecamm Live, I could have multiple cameras plugged into my Mac. Multiple USB cameras, webcams, 4K webcams, 2K webcams, whatever, even the crappy webcams. I could have 3 webcams plugged into my Mac along with my Blue Yeti USB plug-in microphone that I'm talking to you on now. And boom, I could do multi-camera things and the whole 9 yards, and everything was great. And then I would have a few problems with Ecamm Live, very rarely. What would happen is that, something would freeze up and it's like, well, I'll restart Ecamm Live. If it was really bad, which was really rare, I would have to restart the computer and restart Ecamm Live, and boom, everything's good. Most of the problems that I would get would come from the streaming. And so when I try to go with high quality streaming, and of course the high bit rates and things like that, then we would have problems with the audio and the video syncing up, and that there's a little bit of lag. Of course, that would depend on your internet connection and how fast or slow that is. So I totally get that. But generally, wouldn't get any errors, for the most part. Every once in a while, just, oh yeah, I haven't shut my Mac down in, a month or so. Restarted, everything's good to go. Then what happened is Sequoia 15.6 came out. And, so I had Time Machine, and I was like, you know what? Let's do it. I've got Time Machine. If anything goes wrong, I'll just go back in time in the Time Machine, and everything will be fixed if it's messed up. No, that is not the case. It is not the case at all. Okay. So I did the Sequoia update, and after that, I started having a lot of problems with Ecamm Live. And I'm like, what the heck? I had like 3 cameras set up, and, the front one that we're talking here, and then I had another one on the desk that was kind of looking to the side, and then I had another one that was looking straight down, when I do my videos. And so, I could have 3 cameras. Things were working well. I loved that setup. Everything in the universe was good. And then Sequoia 15.6 came out, and then I started having problems. Had problems because then it's like, whoa, wait a second. I can't get 3 cameras. I can only get 2. And then if I got 2, then I also had mic problems that would pop up, and I'm like, what the hell is going on? So I'm thinking, you know what? Let me just sit back. Let me take a drink. I do that, do the woosah thing, center my calm, don't let it steal my joy, shut down Ecamm Live, shut down the computer, restart everything, and boom, I still have the same problems. And it's gotten so bad that I can only use one USB camera now. And I'm lucky that I get the mic. So about 90% of the time I can do one camera with the Blue Yeti mic, and that's all I get. As soon as I plug in another camera, another USB camera, boom, all bets are off. The other camera, it pops up and then it goes away a second and then it flickers and then it's just gone. And then most of the time, the first camera that I had plugged in would go away and it flickers and whatever. And then I would get the audio error saying that the audio has been interrupted, blah, 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 please pick another mic. And it wouldn't work. So I went through a troubleshooting process, and I'm like, wait a second, let me just isolate this and let me plug in the mic, with Ecamm Live. No cameras, everything's fine. I plugged it into all the different USB slots, no problem whatsoever. Plug in one camera, okay? Plugged it into all the different USB slots that I have. Again, no problem whatsoever. But as soon as I put a second camera on there, all hell would break loose, and then everything is trash. Lord forbid you do 3, because if you already had 3 plugged in, is what I would normally do prior to Sequoia 15.6, I wouldn't have any problems. But after Sequoia popped up, now it doesn't even work. So I thought, well, obviously that's not working. Let me remove, and I'll do 2 cameras. And it doesn't work with 2 cameras. Whether I restart Ecamm Live or restart the computer and restart Ecamm Live, I've come to the conclusion that Apple's Sequoia 15.6 sucks. Yeah, it is bad. And lo and behold, what we ended up finding is I contacted Ecamm Live because I thought, I didn't even think it would be the Sequoia update. I contacted Ecamm and I sent an email, said, hey, yeah, I got some problems, blah, blah, blah. Did you do any updates recently? Because I couldn't remember. I'm old. And it's like, yeah, there's some problems with the new update on Mac. And Ecamm Live is a Mac program. So it's not like it's a Windows program that has a cheap little Mac program that they just try to, pacify some people with Apple. No, this is a dedicated Apple software from a third party. So, which has worked wonderfully in the past. And it's not working so wonderfully now. So it ends up an interesting thing. Let's take a look at this because this will be interesting. So started looking up at this and where am I? There I am. Okay. So anyway, the Sequoia 15.6 update that was released on 29 July, and I think I upgraded mine later, has been reported to cause various issues for some users. No shit, Sherlock. Desktop file problems, persistent trash emptying, app freezing, issues with the external devices like Wave XLR. Some users reported encountering errors during the update process itself, but there are some other problems that came up. File and desktop problems. Desktop files inaccessible or missing. This also happened to me because I had a bunch of stuff on my desktop like everybody else does. And it was like all of a sudden all those things were gone. And then they came back. And then they were gone. And then I couldn't get into folders that were on my desktop. And I'm like, holy crap, do I have a virus? You've got to be kidding me. So, and it didn't click that the update would do this. Persistent trash emptying. The trash icon may continue to empty itself even after successfully emptying, potentially indicating background process issue. I've never had that problem. Files disappear into the trash. I had some of that. Kernel panics and freezes, system freezes, which is apparently, I don't know what a kernel is, except for the corn that I won't even go there. And on older Intel-based Macs, which I haven't experienced because mine's an M2, applications like Safari, Figma, Xcode have been reported to freeze or crash after the update. Thankfully, Ecamm Live doesn't crash and burn, but it's just not a good thing. And let me get what else do we got going on here? I've got a. Where's my comments? Comments. I heard somebody comment. Boom! There it is. Let's see what we got. Oh, Sultan's back. Hey, what's going on? He says, I've been a Mac user for a decade. I'm a software developer, and here in Korea, I do all my work from cafes. And all I really needed is my trusty MacBook Pro, an M1 Pro I picked up about 4 years ago. Yeah, they're great. Once you go Mac, you never go back until we got the Sequoia. Sultan says, I've been hesitant about upgrading to Sequoia, and honestly, your experience makes me even more nervous. I wish somebody had told me not to do it because I wouldn't have done it. Now, being the fellow Mac enthusiast that you are and that I am, you would be like, well, hey, why don't we just go use the time machine? And that will undo the Sequoia update, and we can go back to a previous OS version, and life will be good again. Yeah, but no. This was, and when I found out all the problems that were happening with Sequoia, I was like, well, it's not Ecamm Live, it's the OS upgrade, which has been a serious downgrade, in my opinion. Especially with Ecamm Live. I don't know about in some of the files on my desktop and all that. It's causing lots of problems. And it's caused problems in the fact that my Final Cut Pro, that I don't have access to my external drive, which has my Time Machine backup on it. And even now, I can't plug it in. I can plug it in, but it doesn't recognize the drive. And so I have I have 3 drives that I put backups on. I know it's a little crazy, but I'll have a backup drive for my Time Machine, and then I'll have some backup drive stuff for Final Cut Pro and all the stuff that's got, because if something happens to the Mac, I can always have the backup and I won't lose a lot of information. My intros, my outros, my music, all of the usual stuff that I have in my videos. Boom, I could bring that up and go into that library and restore it, and I'm good to go. But the problem is with Sequoia 15.6, I can't access the external drive. Can't do it. No matter which port I use, I shut down my Mac Mini M2. What is it exactly? I want to show you exactly what I have. And Mac Mini 2003, or 2023, 2003. That would be crazy, wouldn't it? M2 Pro, 32 gig, blah, 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 and there it is. Sequoia 15.6, that means of the devil. Okay, I'm not sure, some Indian language or whatever, it means of the devil. And don't upgrade to this. That's what it translates as far as I can tell. So, yeah, I can't go back to the previous OS because Sequoia jacked it up, so I can't read the drive. It's a paperweight. Now, I could probably I'm going to check if I can hook this up to my wife's laptop. She has a Mac. It was actually an old laptop that I had, but I gave that to her. She wanted it, and hopefully she didn't upgrade to Sequoia, and we'll see if we can get into that. But yeah, and then I'm like, crazy. It can't go back in time with the time machine because the time machine won't let you hook up to external drives, which, by the way, I have a dock on here, an additional thing that goes, with your Mac that you can buy that has an additional hard drive that I would save stuff to that, and then I would have information saved to this drive and then another drive, which I would do like every 4 months or so. So basically I had 2 backups. Can't access them at all. Yeah, so I can't go back in time. I can't restore to the previous OS, and I can't get the functionality back with my Ecamm Live. So we're stuck with 1 camera, 1 mic, and we're going old school here. So, yeah. Let's see. We got some other comments here. Laugh out loud. Yes. It is laughable. This is the worst update I can ever remember. And there's more problems. Yes, there's even more. Apps freezing and crashing, slowdowns and performance issues, noticeable slowdowns in stream system performance after updated, even on newer M1 and M2 Macs, and I've experienced that. We'll get rid of that there. UI lag, system server and config processes were reported to cause UI lag, even in basic tasks like typing. Oh my gosh. This is like going back. This is going in the opposite direction of where you're supposed to be going with OS updates and firmware updates and update installation errors, external device issues, Wave XLR not working. Elgato Wave XLR lights were reported to stop working after the update, despite the microphone itself still functioning. Increase SSD usage. Increase the amount of SSD space used by the system, increased RAM usage, time machine backup issues. Some users reported encountering warnings about using older time machine destinations like time capsules for backups. Hell, just the regular time machine isn't working because I can't access the drive that my time machine is on. Safe mode, restarting safe mode and restarting normally has helped some users resolve file and trash issues, which I have found that to be true. Reports, potential issues, conflicts, reinstalling applications, contacting Apple support. It's worth noting that not all users are experiencing these problems, and many are reporting a smooth experience with the update. However, if you're considering update, it's a good idea to be aware of the potential issues and take necessary precautions, such as backing up your data and being prepared to troubleshoot if problems arise. But don't back up on an external hard drive because, in my case, Sequoia will not let you access the external drive where your time machine is at, let alone any of the other information that's important. That was, and and here's the other thing. It ends up on Macs. You have iCloud. iCloud is kind of like you can store a bunch of files in Whoosy and whatever. And so I'm like, okay, so obviously this is. I'm already thinking conspiracy theory here. I'm thinking that Apple is going to say, hey, we're going to screw the people and we want to force them. We want to herd them down this funnel so that they will buy more iCloud storage so they can do their time machine and all that stuff, which I get it. It's, I was kind of old school. Let me have my information on my external hard drive so I know that I have copies of it. Not that I do anything screwy or wrong or illegal, maybe unethical. But it's, I was like, yeah. So I thought, well, maybe this is them just trying to herd people into getting more iCloud. So I was like, oh, well, I'll just do a time machine thing and set up a new one on the iCloud that I have a good amount of space. No, you can't do that. So I can't use Time Machine on my Mac because it won't read external drives, which is where my Time Machine is at, but I can't put Time Machine on my Mac because the hard drive is too small because Apple doesn't let people upgrade their storage and because they're knobs. I got to be careful what I say. But yeah, it is just, I thought, well, surely I can use the iCloud and I'll just do a new Time Machine and I'll try to figure out how to go back to the previous OS. And apparently that requires you having to redo absolutely everything, which reminds me of Windows when you get the Windows blue screen of death and you would spend a day and a half rebuilding your system, reloading every single piece of software that you had, digging through your desk drawers and trying to find the CD for the program, and then going through endless, boot ups and restarts, and it didn't take, so you got to do it again. Again, I remember the days of Windows and having to rebuild absolutely everything. It would take a day and a half to 2 days. And even then, it was like, you're just out of luck on some programs. So, yeah. That's what we got going on. So much fun, so much joy. So I sent a message to Apple in voicing my concern and how much it sucks, the Sequoia thing. So hopefully you can do the same. And Sultan, don't upgrade to Sequoia. Don't. Please don't. I beg of you, don't. Because I would not want anybody to go through what I'm going through. And again, they said it's not everybody goes through it, but how do you know you're not going to be the one that's going to get it or not? Yeah, you said you do software developer, and you're here in Korea. I mean, what if you could not access your files? There was file folders on my desktop that I could not access. Zip, zero, none. Couldn't access external drives that I had been using for years, and quality drives, no problems. As soon as Sequoia hit, boom, now we got a massive mess. Okay, so anyway, Sequoia sucks. Yeah, I'm just, I was a diehard Mac fan, but this is the worst update I've ever seen. So we're going to move past this. We're all going to take a drink, and since I'm going to take a drink, you press the like and subscribe button, because that would really help. And we're going to get into this save big money with a DIY teleprompter that I'm making in Tinkercad. So try to try to regain the peace and the calm. So kind of like Kung Fu Panda. You see that movie where he's like, inner peace, yeah, and then Kung Fu Panda's, not giving him peace. That's what Apple is to me right now, is the Kung Fu Panda who is just being annoying. So anyway, it ends up looking at these teleprompters. I mean, there's a teleprompter there, and it's not, you got a sheet of glass there, and you got some type of fabric, and you got a frame, and then you got a place where your iPad or your phone sits on, and then little thing on the back, you do a little hot shoe on there, and you should be good to go. So I was looking at that, and the prices of those things, holy crow, $200, $300, $400. Like the one that you see here, that's 600 pounds. Holy crow. Just way too much money. So I'm looking at this, I'm looking at the picture, and I'm like, okay, screen, I go to Grok and Chat GBT, and I ask, what is the degree of the angle of teleprompters? It says normally it's 45 degrees. So I'm like, okay, great. It uses some kind of special glass, but you don't really need that. So I'm thinking, what would be a cheap way to do it? It would end up, I'll just go get a 8.5 or an 8x10 picture frame with the glass, and we'll just build a teleprompter in Tinkercad, and maybe I'll end up doing that. Hey, he's back. Greetings, Steves. My MacBook Pros works well with Sequoia 15.6. No issues so far. Congratulations. I am on the opposite end of the spectrum of that. So things are not going well. Like I said, the Ecamm Live that I used to be able to hook up 3 different cameras to, and then of course, with USB, and then my Blue Yeti microphone and all that. I can only use one camera and one mic, and that's it. If I plug anything else in, all hell breaks loose. And I lost files, and I can't have access to my hard drives, my external hard drives, which had my backups. So just to bring you up. So that's where we're at, and to try to regain our common peace, we're talking about teleprompters. So let's take a look at what we got on the screen here. Oh, you know what I want to do is I want to copy that. And when we go to the screen share here, we'll do this. And so that way people know what we're talking about. Okay, so this is Tinkercad. And considering that with Tinkercad, you can make a bunch of stuff. And I've done stuff, and I posted on my Creality Cloud page. I did like airbrush holders, and I did some paintbrush holders. I did some other things, and so we'll flash that at the end. But basically, what we ended up seeing is that we saw with that picture was a teleprompter, and basically the teleprompter kind of looked like, well, let me get this so it looks normal, so we can actually flip this around, and what we'll do is we'll kind of zoom into this. And that is basically what your teleprompter looks like. So what we end up having is you can put your tablet inside this area here, and then we have a cutout for the glass that I made in the top, and then the glass would slide down, and then that way you have your tablet, and as it's running the script with a teleprompter app, which thankfully there's still a few free ones around, and then your camera goes onto the back of this, and then so you can film, and then you can read, and so it looks like you're not reading from a script, but you're actually reading from a script. So yeah, that's what it ends up being. Like, so for example, we have like our Sony, our AX53. I kind of made a mock-up of that, and that's what, just a little 4K Handycam that we got here, which does a really great job. And so I made that to size, and basically what happens is that we're going to place this camera on the back here, and we'll kind of rotate this around, and then we would lift that up. It would be on a little stand or whatever, and then we kind of move that forward, and boom, that's how it ends up looking. And with the glass pane that is in there, what happens is that whatever's on your iPad or your tablet, I have a tablet, you could also use your phone, and so we do something like that, and then with the tablet, it reflects up onto the glass, which is at 45 degrees, and you can see the words that are on the glass, and the camera can record you, but it doesn't see the words on the screen. It's like magic. I mean, it is really, really cool. So I thought, instead of paying $200-300 for a teleprompter, because I'm cheap sometimes, I thought, well, why don't I make one of these in Tinkercad? So I've been kind of screwing around with this thing for quite some time, And yeah, it's been kind of interesting. So basically what I ended up doing, and I've got some examples here. Basically what I ended up doing is getting the dimensions, and let's see if we can do this, and basically ended up making a box, which is according to some dimensions that I just pulled out of the air for the tablet size and maybe the camera and something like this and something like that. And then I needed a 45 degree because kind of like, this is the glass that would fit in there, that would slide down on those tracks, which you can see right down there. Those are the tracks. And yeah, there's a slot right there. So it could end up going there and go back. There we go. And so basically what I ended up doing is kind of taking this basic shape, and this was a conglomerate of a bunch of different shapes. We had like the box on the bottom. Let me see if we can get to ungroup all this stuff. So I did some holes on this, and then, oh yeah, it goes kind of crazy. So this bottom piece was its own separate piece, and then the top piece was a little bit different, but then I had some problems with getting the dimensions right and perfect, and so it wasn't really working the way I wanted it to. So I thought, instead of using two different boxes or parts, I could just do the same thing here. So basically what I ended up doing, let's just go ahead and we'll make this, we'll just make that a green. And basically what I ended up doing is just going through, and we'll copy another box, and then I think I reduced this by about 10 or so, whatever it was, and basically just kind of make the box smaller-ish, and then we brought it down, and then we want to bring this forward, and we made it a hole, and then we just kind of slid this back, and of course it's not centered, so we just kind of collected everything. We did the little centering thing, and boom, and then we raised it up. It was about 5 or 10, something like that, somewhere around there. And then we just ended up combining all these things and then group them together, and boom, now we have a box with a big hole in it that kind of goes pretty much to the end. And then what I ended up doing is making another hole, which was basically kind of like to do like the corners or whatever it ended up doing. And how did I do that? Oh, I had to turn it the other way. Okay. Shapes and colors, that's what it's all about. So basically something like this, and kind of angled this, and then tried to impose this over here to try to get the 45-degree angle, and then drop it down. And then it was kind of like, well, yeah, but now it's cutting into the bottom. And so basically what I ended up doing instead of that was taking this little tool right here, and basically this is where you can actually take this, click that, and now what I could end up doing, we can see where we're at, and basically what was kind of the shape. We'll just kind of make just like a general shape on kind of what we ended up doing, and kind of like that, and well, no, it was like kind of like that, and then like that, or whatever it is, and it's just a real simple type of thing. And so basically what I could end up doing this, and then kind of getting that same similar shape in there, and so then I could extend this out, and then I was able to get that as we move this back, kind of like that. So yeah, pretty darn close on that. Had to extend it out and then make this a hole, and then I was able to get that kind of shape that we wanted to get. So And if I do this, and I do kind of like that, and then like that, but I need to raise it up a bit. So we'll take it down, and this is just kind of a real quick type of thing that we ended up doing here. But the opposite of this. So yeah, it was the opposite of this shape. So anyway, everybody's like, what the hell is he doing? I've got more of an example here. So yeah, here's what we ended up doing is we had that shape, and so actually it's just a box inside the box, and then we made the box, we drew the shape out for that, and we're able to get that, and it took a long time because obviously I'm not that smart. So we ended up with this piece here, and then I thought, well, let's make this one piece, and then what I ended up doing is taking the measurements of the glass, and it's like 4 millimeters by 4 millimeter thick glass. I think it's like 4.12 or 4.2, whatever it was. And then that will slide down that channel, and it will kind of move over, and it will stay within that channel, and we should be good to go, and that will be our glass. And so you're able to look through the glass, and with your tablet, you could throw your tablet in there and you would be able to see your text, or you could end up, even using your iPhone or phone, do the same thing, have your teleprompter software. So I wanted to make sure that it would fit my iPhone and that it would also fit my iPad mini. Hopefully my phone and iPad mini won't have as problems with, that we experienced with Sequoia. So yeah, basically that is going to be the teleprompter. And I've got a mock-up of, like, this is my Sony AX53, that 4K camcorder that I just showed you. And I'll move that out of the way. And, we could end up playing with this. And yeah, it's, that's how it would end up working out. And of course on this back end, you would have some cloth or fabric that would be black, so you could black out and make sure that there's no light that is coming in through these holes here. And yeah, you should be good to go. So a little bit of Velcro on here, to put the fabric on, and then a little drawstring action there, and it should be good to go. So yeah, I'm just trying to figure out this little back piece here on how I want that to work. But yeah, thinking that that could work out. It could work out indeed. So that's what we got going on with that. And I think I ended up checking out. Matter of fact, let me pull that up. Recent projects, teleprompter. Nope, that's not it. File, new project. Discard. We're going to do a new project here. And so what we can end up doing is we go back to this. And we want to make sure that we have this. This build area is approximately 350 by 350. If we go to settings, yeah. So that's the size of the build area on my Creality K2 Plus. So now that we have this selected, we can go to export, and we can do that as an STL. It's going to go ahead and do that, and it's downloaded, and we have that there. And then what we could end up doing is, where's our part? We can take that and bring that into Creality Print, and that's going to be a huge print. Let's make this a different color. Let's make this that gray. Of course, I'd print it out in black, but that is the teleprompter right there. And the diameter of that is 100 millimeters. So I looked online and I found that the average lens for like DLSR cameras or DSLR or DLSR, whatever the cameras are, usually have a diameter on their lenses of about 80, 88, 70, 75, or 70 to 75. So I said, well, let's do that. And then I bumped it up to 100, so that's why the hole's so big. But yeah, something like this could work out well. And it's weird because why am I not seeing my whole screen? That is just weird. There it is. Like I said, after that Sequoia update, it has just been, this thing has been throwing me weird curveballs. And I don't know why, because it's Sequoia. So anyway, that's what we could end up doing. So on smaller printers that have like 256 by 256 by 256, obviously you couldn't print this out in its entirety. But what we could do with this is we could go along here. Let's get that out of the way. We could go along here, we could do our slicing. And what we could end up doing is just popping that and do it directly in half. We could perform the cut. And then what we could end up doing is selecting one of these, and we could put that, so we've got two different files, and maybe we would want to print it like that. Of course, that would take a while, but I don't know if you would need any supports. We probably need to do 2 prints on this. So, but I think that's longer than 256. So if we went with like right there, and we went up to the top, that is 270. So yeah, it might be a little bit, 270 is too big for like a 256 cubed, but you could go through and you could slice this again and make it smaller. But the whole idea of this was to make this so it could print out without any supports, which the minimal supports would be had if you did something like this. Matter of fact, let's try that, and then we'll take this one here, and let's say let's put it on this edge. And what we'll do is, now that we've got this, let's go over here, and we will slice this up, and we'll see how this will fare and what it's supposed to look like. And yeah, no supports needed on that, which would be nice. Of course, when you cut it, you can also put connector holes and dowels and things like that. But we're looking at 8 hours and 14 minutes for one side. You're looking at 280, basically 285 grams of filament, which is good. And then for a total cost of $5.70. So for $10, $11, and 12 bucks, basically you could end up making the housing for this, and that's awesome. I mean, that's incredible. And if we do this one here, that's another 8 hours. I don't know. Did I put the supports on here? That's the other question. Supports, did we run supports? No, we didn't. Normal, auto, tree, auto, default, style. We'll do that. We'll slice the plate. I was wondering why, because I think there needs to be some supports on here. Yep. So again, we're looking about 336 grams, about 10 hours of print time. It's going to be $6.72. So with this, that would be, that actually looks pretty good, and that should work well. So, 10 bucks for each side, so you're talking $20, $22, something like that. That is not bad compared to the price of what it would cost to get this. And so that's why I love 3D printing, is we can go through here, and we'll do the same thing there. We'll enable support, and we will slice all of it, and we'll get the final numbers on how much this would cost. So for the whole thing that we have here, both sides, we've got a total of 714 grams. So that's not bad. So the model is like support and flushed. And then this one is a little bit different. I'm wondering why. I probably got some settings that are messed up. But you're looking at 20 hours of printing for $14.30 basically is what you're going to end up having. And yeah, boom, there you go. Bob's your uncle. And I don't know why Bob's your uncle. Somebody explained that to me. The UK thing that we got going on where if something goes well and they say, and there you go, and Bob's your uncle. Explain that to me, I don't know. So anyway, looking at building a possible teleprompter, I'm kind of going through this, and there's other projects that I started and I never printed them out. I'm also considering on how can I reduce some of the mass on this. So if we go back to here, because that's a lot of material. Here's something that I ended up doing that maybe we could end up doing something like this. And I made some holes. And what we'll end up doing is we'll just do that, make sure that they're in the center. And I think it's gonna be, let's make this transparent. We'll go down there. I think that could work, but I might need to scrunch that up just a little bit. So if we take these here, we could just make them a little bit smaller. We just kind of put them like that. Let's go ahead and we'll select this and make it like that. And I think, yeah, we got enough room down there. And so what I could end up doing is taking these holes and sink these through. So that way it goes through, well, not quite. Let's try it like that. Yep, so now we got the holes in the bottom and it's all lined up. And then what I could end up doing is taking this, we will group that together and through the magic of processing. And now we've got a lot less material, which reduces the weight of the teleprompter, and you don't need to worry about this. You know, it will still hold the tablet or your iPhone, and it should be good to go. So looking at different ways to do this, I'm just kind of stuck on this back end, on the adapter and how the camera is going to connect onto that. And usually what you end up having, and so now I'm wondering where it is. But there's like a shoe that goes on the bottom of this, kind of like when you put a camera on a tripod, it hooks up to your 1/4 inch thing there. And then so it's a little shoe that sits on there, and then that shoe would sit onto that green part that we have that would give us enough height. So I'm trying to figure out how to do that and how to make that adjustable. But again, I don't want to go through and have this like adjustable. I mean, the way it is now with the green, with the way it is like this, let me just get this picture out of here. And we'll just throw this up here to kind of give a reference. And what we end up having there is that little green part in the back, that is where the camera will sit. And it's about 50 millimeters, which is the size of the width of the shoe that goes on the bottom of that camera. So should be able to connect that on. It uses a 1/4 20, so I might have to do, and I've already ordered some heat sinks that I could put in there so we could actually screw or melt that into that green piece, and then green piece. No relation whatsoever. But then the camera would be able to, the camera shoe would be able to connect onto that green part, and then, you know, it would be easy peasy. So anyway, that's what we got going on. I'm really considering on doing this. There are some other things that I want to look at as far as possibly reduce some more material. And another thing that I was looking at, let's just go ahead and we'll undo the holes there. We'll move those out of the way. The other thing that I was looking at is that possibly we could just get like, we can get our big square here, and this will be our hole. And we could do something like kind of put it at an angle like this. And we could drop that down. Something kind of like that. And so we can just get it, try to get it as tight as we could, like right on the edge there. And then that would reduce the amount of space or the material there, which could end up working pretty good. And then let's move some of this stuff out of the way because I know that's going to get in the way. And then what I could end up doing is that going to get everything? And we'll just bring this down into basically like that. That's close enough for, holy crow, what did I do? So almost, but you see what I'm getting at. I get basically something like that. Excuse me. And then what I could do is I could copy that, and then we could kind of move this over, and then we will do this like that. And then we could kind of do the same thing here. And about like right there-ish. Something like that. And then what we could end up doing is we could group all this together. And this should cut away a decent amount of material here that will reduce even more. So the good thing is that if I want to use, let's get that out of the way. So if I wanted to use my iPhone, I could put my iPhone in there like that, and I'd have enough room for it to sit. It doesn't have to worry because it's just going to sit in one place. It's not like this is going to be, manhandled around. So I could put my iPhone in there, and then I could still put my tablet on there as well, but I wouldn't have as much. And is that? Don't tell me. Oh, I'd have to bring this down. So basically like that. And just a tad up. So that would sit in there. And I think I would need to take out a little bit more. So probably remove this little part here, but we still got room to move. But I would probably just take this out and have this line. And so that way, but I might leave those in there. But is that enough? Will that fit? I don't know. We got 1 millimeter on that side. And, I'd have to take out a little bit of material on both sides. But this is a little bit bigger than my tablet, I think, because it's 180 by 255, so I think that's a little bit bigger. So what was it? 255 by 180. So if we measure this, this is 250, so yeah, it's actually 250. 250. And it would be 170, let's say 175. And so this, and that's 180, so 175, that's right. So now we would be assured that we have enough space. Yeah, okay. I thought it was going crazy there for a second. So if we look back here, we've got enough space there. And then if we move in here, we've got how many more? 1, 2, 3. So we got about 3 millimeters of space. So the good thing is we've got enough room left and right. So we could definitely put the iPad in there in my Mini, and then, yeah, we'll be good to go. So that's what I'm working on right now. Whether I actually do it or not, I'm not sure. It kind of depends on how I can do this back end, and of course on the bottom I would have to do some heat, some little things where you can heat them up and put them into the PLA material, and it would be a female screw part, and so that way it's embedded in there in the plastic with a soldering iron insert, and you could screw in your 1/4-20 to connect up to a shoe or a tripod mount or something like that. So because 1/4-20 is usually the size that you end up using. So yeah, something like this. And then, you know, I could even go through and make some adjustments to some of these circles. And like, for example, I could go through here and we'll just ungroup these. And I could just do like a row, and we'll ungroup those. We'll get rid of that, and then again, we could select all these. We'll group all those together. We'll make those holes. And then the other thing I could end up doing is selecting all of this. We'll line this up with this piece here, and it was pretty darn close. And there are the holes for that. And then I could take this and, well, let's see, how many more holes could I do? Seriously. Let's see if we could do, let's take this stack and we'll see how this looks. Can we fit 4 in there? I don't know. I kind of wanted to do something like that, but that's not going to work. So maybe I could just kind of pull these back, do something like that. Again, we'll do this, we'll do that, get rid of that. We'll select these, we'll group these, we'll make it a whole, and again, we could end up doing something along these lines. And maybe, no, it's not, I don't want Orca Slicer. Seriously. So, yeah. So we could do something like that to try to get some material, remove some of the material, so we don't have to use so much, but we still have the rigidity that we need. And or I could do some smaller circles and get, you know, even more material removed, but still have a stable base on for the tablet or the phone or whatever. So probably end up making, you know, the holes a little bit smaller. Let's just get rid of that. And we could try to bring these down so it's kind of like that. That was pretty darn close again. And then with that, we could copy that and if you can feel me, we could bring these down so that way they're pretty darn close, whatever it is. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That one on the left would have to go. So let's get rid of that one. We'll regroup all of these. And we'll make those holes. And then we could go back and take this, copy these. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then we could probably end up fitting another, no, not quite. But you get what I'm saying. We could definitely play around with that. I'm not sure how to do that smartly, but that would be a way to remove some material. And again, it would print a little bit quicker. Well, maybe not a little bit quicker because you still have the main dimensions, but you would use less material. So yeah, just kind of something I'm thinking about, and we'll see how this comes around. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm looking at there. And when I first started this, I started making one, like I said, like this one back here, and I had different parts. And then even before this, I started trying to make it with a frame for the glass, and that would be a different piece then, and it would hook up into this. And I'm like, why am I trying to make all these pieces? We'll just make one big piece, and we'll do the cutouts that we need, and we should be good, you know. All we need to do is have that glass slide in there, and yeah, we should be good. Which is interesting. Let's take a look at that glass, because I think we need to look at that to make sure that the dimensions are right. Let's move all this stuff out of the way. Move, leave. And this would end up going in here. And to make sure that, let's make this transparent. And we'll make this, we'll make that red. And so this way, what we can end up doing is we can actually see if this glass is going to be, you know, kind of like in that channel on that side, but not on this side. Dang it. My measurements were off. Damn it. Because I wanted it to be a little bit bigger. So that's about one. That's 1, 2. That's 2 millimeters over. And it's still not there. It's short. By how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're short 5 millimeters. So what we could end up doing is, let's move this back over. And like I said, I'm not really a CAD person. 1, 2. Yeah, we'll just do 2. And then we can go over here. And we can bring this whole thing over. One, 2. And so now that channel will have enough room to keep that glass, and then we still have a little bit of wiggle room. So so basically 1, 2. Well, we'll just kind of split it right there. We could do that, and then on this side, one, 2, and I think we're good. Okay, so that, and then the channel goes down into the piece there. So it goes down there, so that should be good. And I think the thickness is the thickness going to be good? Because glass is usually 2 millimeters, 2 to 4 millimeters. And now I'm kind of wondering what was the glass? Let's check, because that would be an important thing. Could you imagine doing all this and then printing it out after numerous hours, and that's 4.02. So I gave some wiggle room. If we make that 4.01, and then we'll go back to our 45 degrees. I'll bring this back into here, and we'll see how this works out. And will that slot be enough? Ooh, that slot is going to be, I think we're going to need to do a little bit more, because that is, Yeah, we're going to need to do a little bit more on that slot. Imagine that. I'm so glad I'm making this video because if I didn't, I would have driven on with this, put some holes and minimize some material, but I didn't double check this. So thankfully, and that's in the center, but we need to make this a little bit bigger as far as the height but we need to take that out and then go back. See, because when you do the height, if it's at an angle, it won't correctly represent the height. So there's the 4.01. We're going to need some wiggle room, say 4.25. And that should give us enough room because, like I said, a pane of glass can be 2 to 4 millimeters. I haven't seen anything bigger than 4 millimeters. And what we're talking about there are like the 8 by 10 photo frames that you get at like a dollar store or Walmart or wherever. The glass is usually 2 millimeters. And the most I've seen by doing some research and grokking and in Chat GPT is that the thicker glass is 4 millimeters. So I guess with the 4.25, that should be enough for that. And so now we'll just go ahead and bring this back. And we're going to have to make that longer. So we got to go back out. There's probably some people watching this that actually do real CAD that are like going, oh my God, what is he doing? There's so much easier ways to do that. We'll just kind of extend this side out. And then we'll go back, we'll do our 45 degrees. I'm just doing the best that I know how. That's all I can say. And so now we'll try to line this up. Now that's really deep, and that's not what we want. We want this, and as you can see, we got the initial channel there. And how does that look? I think that's pretty good on there. And then we've got it set in there just a hair more. So let's just go up 1 millimeter. Dink. And yeah, we see we got a little bit of space there. So let's try to move this. That's not what I want. Maybe a half. Let's just do a 0.1 millimeter. Anyway, that'll give us a little bit more room. And now what we'll end up doing is we will, since that's there, we'll do that. We'll do our centering off of this piece here, and we're still good on that. And that should give us, see how we've got a little bit more material, but it's the slot, so we need to go this way as well. I am so glad you all are here with me with this. Now let's do that in, so this piece here. And then what we need to do is extend this out to there, because we got to be bigger than the glass. And this is going to go out to here. And now we should be good. Oh, in case you're wondering. You're looking at me as I'm doing stuff and it's not on the screen. So, sorry about that. So anyway, so now that we have the pane of glass and this red part that we have that's sitting at 45 degrees, we made it 4.25 millimeters thick, which is a little bit thicker than standard glass, which can be 2 to 4 millimeters. And then we kind of made the hole bigger on this. And so if we make that, that is going to be the hole. This is going to be our slot that the glass is going to go through. So that's the 8 by 10 inch glass. And now that we've got that, what we'll end up doing is, let's see, come on. So we'll select the glass, we'll select that, we'll do group. And now you can see that we have the slot for the glass. And we should be good to go. And we can see that we also have the slot going down here, and it will countersink down into this piece here. So yeah, you can end up seeing how it kind of goes down a little bit into there, and we've got enough room. And you can see we've got the slot there. Let's make this red again. So you can see we've got the slot into which our pane of glass could go in there at 45 degrees, and boom, there it is. Whew. I'm so glad I went over this. I was just going to print this out and call it good. I was going to do a little bit of removing material on here, but other than that, I was just going to print it, which obviously it wouldn't work now. So with that, interesting. But like I said, what we could end up doing is taking this onto our printer, our 3D printer, and all we ended up doing is exporting it, cutting it in half, and the total price of this was going to be all plates. So we're looking at a total of $14.30 basically, and 20 hours of printing. So yeah, that could be a good thing. $14.30. Granted, yes, I had to buy a 3D printer, but I already had that. That's already a done deal. But to get and make a teleprompter that, online, you're looking at Amazon and you're looking at, let's take a look at some of the prices. And teleprompter. And we could look at some of the prices of these things. So boom, there it is, small rig, $136. And that's just that's like a really small, seriously, there we go. That's minimal amount of plastic. There's something that's, $170, which is, kind of the same thing that we're looking at. There's 288, but that screen, that plugs in. That's actually a display screen, and they have their own software and stuff, so that's not really an apples to apples. But still, $100 there, that could hold your tablet and your iPhone, $100 there. $299. Of course, it's got a special beam splitter glass, but yeah, you could definitely save some money. There, $129, $57, which is really Barney basic. It just has basically the frame for the glass and then some fabric, which is minimal. It's still $60. This one's there, $200. I mean, and I could print it for like $14, $15, $139, $49, $200. 47. What is the cheapest one? That's what I'm wondering. The cheapest teleprompter. Low to high. What is it going to be? 30 bucks? 48? Well, that's like a 7-inch. That's just for like your phone. So that's another one for your phone. 48. So 53. Teleprompter, blah, blah, blah. 9-inch, 9.3-inch aluminum. There's one where you can do your iPad tablet up to 11-inch. So $135 is what we're looking at. Well, there's one for $100. So $100. And I can end up spending $14.30 after 20 hours of printing. So, yeah, you can save a little bit of money on there. Yeah, a little bit of money on doing my own teleprompter. And then, of course, there's the cost of the glass. You can get that beam splitter glass, which ends up that it will reflect. It's like a 70-30 ratio, and that whatever it is, but you can make them with just regular pieces of glass as long as the back end where the camera's looking is enclosed and light doesn't get in there, and you should be good to go. So, yeah, $100 versus 15 bucks. Let's say you go to the dollar store, you get a $1 or a $2 8x10 frame. Boom, put that in there, and again, the saying, and Bob's your uncle. That's what you could end up doing. So, yeah, interesting stuff. Interesting stuff. And I got to delete that. We'll just get rid of that because I don't want to print that one out because the sizings are all wrong. So anyway, that's what I've been doing, is playing around with Tinkercad amongst all of the other things and the various problems, the numerous problems that we've had with Sequoia 15.6, which is just crazy. Some people don't have any of those problems, but yeah, like I said, there was a number of problems that pop up with that in the Sequoia, and I was one of those people. So, yeah. And I can't use my time machine. Did I tell you that? Because I was like, I'll just use my time machine to go back in time that is stored on an external hard drive for backups in case something goes wrong. Well, the Sequoia 15.6 made it so it won't read my external hard drive. Yeah, so it is the worst update I have ever experienced. Thankfully, not everybody experiences all of this. So, but it definitely wreaks havoc with the Ecamm Live. Like I said, I can only use one camera and the one microphone with my Blue Yeti. It just ends up, it's just not good. It's just not good at all. So, at least for me. I'm really surprised. I sent Apple a nasty gram saying, hey, this needs to fix and blah, blah, blah. You're not happy camper when it comes to Sequoia. So, and then the response was, oh, to go back to the previous OS version, just use your time machine. I can't do time machine because it won't recognize the external drives. So I would have to do a full rebuild and redo absolutely everything on my Mac Mini. So it is definitely, they screwed the pooch on this, and I like Mac, I like Apple. I've got an Apple Watch, I got a tablet, iPhone, the whole 9 yards. I know their computers are really good, except for the fact that they don't let you upgrade the hard drives or upgrade the RAM. I don't like that either. But everything else I pretty much like about them, except for their iPhones that are like 15 years behind Samsung. But other than that, the newest upgrade on the iPhone is, a new pastel color. So, yeah, Apple is pushing all the wrong buttons with the Sequoia 15.6. So anyway, that's what we got going on. Wanted to do a video and show you what's going on and what gets up my nose, and trying to get away from all that by making a teleprompter in Tinkercad, and we will eventually print it out. We'll see how that goes. Do some little tweaks and remove some material. Again, measure twice, print once. That's obviously going to be a thing. So we'll see how this all pans out. So anyway, that's what we got going on. Some fun stuff. Again, Steve, the retired hobby tech guy, American expat here in Korea. And this is just some of the stuff that I do besides painting miniatures. And I've got some really cool models that came up. So if you're interested in painting miniature models, or I didn't know how to do it, and I just started about 2 years ago, and it's been a really cool project, really cool hobby to get into. And besides going to the gym and lifting weights and being a knuckle dragger. So try to get in touch with my artsy side. And so let me show you my most recent artsy thing that we got going on. This guy is the bomb. So there it is. So there is the guy, and he's all cretted up. His axe is bloody. You know, we got bones everywhere, dirt, grime, the whole 9 yards. And we got moss on the rocks. You know, we did a lot of detail work on this, and he's got blood on his claws, the whole 9 yards. And he has been in the thick of battle. I haven't done his eyes yet, but we're going to do that because that's the last thing that I'll end up doing. You know, we got rust on there. Yeah, this is the artsy stuff that I do. So, yeah, it's not like flower pots and butterflies. It's men of battle. So, yeah, that's what we got going on. I still got a few things to do on him, but yeah, a lot of blood, a lot of blood. My wife was like, there's a lot of blood on there. And I'm like, yeah, I know. Looks cool. So, a few more details and we should be done. So, with that being said, if you got anything out of this, like don't do the Sequoia update until all of these problems have been figured out and Apple fixes this, please like the video. If you're a diehard Samsung fan or Windows person, smash the like button because you can say, yeah, see, told you so. Yeah, smash that like button. If you want to see the ongoing saga of what goes on with us here in Korea, hobbies, and obviously the problems with Mac, which also brings up, there is this other thing, and it's kind of strange because I had recently got a video switcher. I bought this video switcher because I wanted to get some more high-end cameras to connect up to the video switcher, and then this Sequoia thing happened. So I ordered one camera because they're a little expensive, and it will hook into an HDMI on this video switcher thing, and we'll see how that goes. So yeah, some very interesting stuff is going to be going on. They're going to be upgrading, hopefully. Cross your fingers, it won't involve Apple, but it kind of does because I'll be able to do multiple cameras with that video switcher, but so I have like 3 or 4 cameras going into the video switcher, but the output will be an HDMI that will go to the Mac, so it thinks it's only seeing one camera. So hopefully, please, that will be the answer to the, this will be like a long-term answer, so I don't have to jerk around with Apple and you know, OS updates. And now, recently, I just read an article before this video started on how Apple is going to redo their operating system. So Lord knows what's going to happen now. It's just absolutely crazy. I got to make sure I turn that thing off. Is that the power? No, that's the power. Okay. So yeah, I'm kind of migrating towards the video switcher, and hopefully that'll be a permanent fix for this, and I can get some higher end cameras and kind of upgrade. You know, you see all the talking heads with their DLSR cameras that make them look pretty and handsome. I definitely need help in that regard. So I'm going to be saving my nickels for stuff like that and then continue on printing stuff. So yeah, like and subscribe to the channel. I would really appreciate that as we close out this video. There it is, the email address. Shoot me an email, say hi, whatever it is you want to do. Retirement overseas in Korea, or in general, hobby, 3D printing, or just say hi. there it is. I always answer my emails. Might take me a couple days, but I always answer them. You can also buy me a coffee, and that's what all these cool people down here have done. They have bought me coffee. The link is in the description box. If not, I totally get it. But as a minimum, not the minimum, but the best thing that you could do for me is to like this video. So I'll leave you to that. I'm going to go ahead and sign off, and we'll try to play around and see if I can restore my Mac to the previous OS version without too much angst, and we'll just call it a day. So, yeah, that's it. We'll see you on the next one. Peace. And no teleprompter. I'm not reading a script, but if I print this out, maybe I will be scripting. Maybe I'll have a script, and at the end I'll just do some ranting. So maybe. I don't know. We'll see what happens. All right. Later.